im se svima, i malima i velikima, i bogatima i siromašnima, i slobodnjacima i robovima, dade žig na njihovu desnu ruku ili na čela njihova, te da nitko ne može ništa kupiti ili prodati.
Pozdrav dragi narode, dobrodošli u još jednu epizodu Slobodni. 15-minutni gradovi. Da li vam to zvuči poznato? To je projekt koji će biti implementiran i u Zagrebu, a trenutno se kao pilot projekt implementira u mnogim gradovima. Danas je to tema. 15-minutni gradovi su zamisao da živimo u okviru 15 minuta hoda od vlastitog doma. Da sve što nam treba za dnevne aktivnosti i za život imamo u tom okviru. Neki kažu to je da bi lakše živjeli bolje, a neki kažu da iza toga stoji ipak malo ozbiljniji plan. Moja današnja gošća dolazi iz Velike Britanije, koji su iskusili kao pilot projekt u Oxfordu i Cambridgeu, iskusili su 15-minutni gradove. Od sad nadalje ćemo razgovarati na engleskom jeziku. Hello, Seni Adams. Welcome to our show in Croatia.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It's really lovely to be with you today. Thank you.
Can you tell our audience who is Sandy Adams?
Who am I? I've been a researcher into Agenda 21 and subsequently 2030 for the last 16 years. And I've watched it progress and I've seen where it's going. United Nations Agenda 21 is really a system of control, environmental control. It's not about environment, it's about control. But it's being implemented at a local level with environmentalism as the Trojan horse.
Great. Well, today's topic is 15-minute city. In Great Britain, you had two pilot projects, Oxford and Cambridge. Can you tell us what happened there?
Sure. I mean, this is actually rolled out in other cities subsequently as well, and towns. This comes under a banner of 15-minute cities. For smaller towns, it's called low-traffic neighborhoods. For even smaller towns or villages, it's called livable neighborhoods. And it is this is not a grassroots. I mean, they're putting it over as some kind of environmental grassroots initiative. It is not. This is a global initiative. This is coming out of something called the C40 cities, which has been put out globally, and if you look it up, C40 cities, it is a global thing. It's happening in cities all over the world. They want to implement it in cities all over the world. So really, what happened in the cities they're trialling, which was mainly Canterbury, Oxford, Cambridge, I think there's other smaller ones, but the worst one really was Oxford, because what they did was and Canterbury, they banned cars from really operating within the city. So even people that lived in the cities couldn't move their cars in and out. You get something like 100 days of the year where you can move freely to wherever you want. Once you've used up your tokens for the 100 days, you cannot move anywhere. So you have to plan ahead. And everything was pushed onto the ring roads around the city, which actually caused massive congestion and pollution, if you want to go down that route. And what happened was people couldn't get to work. It took 2 hours instead of 20 minutes. The whole thing has been a disaster, but they won't lift it. They're just carrying on with it. It's effectively a climate lockdown, because with this, to save the planet, you've got to stop driving into the city to save the planet. So what's happened is that everything's pushed out onto the ring roads. Everything takes longer. Nobody can get to work. It's destroyed all the businesses around that city and within the city. And so what you do is also the ambulances couldn't get through. People were dying in ambulances because they couldn't get through. And if you do get through, then you're fined. And all of this is, it's okay if you pay to get through the city. sorry, I'm just turning this off. If you pay to get through the city, then it's okay. You're almost offsetting everything. But that doesn't, if you look at it that way, that doesn't save the planet. Offsetting has never. It doesn't save anything. You can pay, but you have to pay a lot of money to be able to drive through the city. And people in London are doing it with the ULEZ, the ultra low emission zones. That's another thing that's come in London is they've got these ultra low emission zones in London, Bristol, major cities where you can pay to get through. So long as you have the money, you can pay, which is just unbelievable. People are getting, their businesses are, really suffering, and their private life is suffering because of these restrictions. They are climate lockdowns, and, just to stop people from freedom of movement. Yeah.
Please, can you explain what do you mean by 100 days a year? What you can do 100 days a year?
Yeah, 100 days a year. You can go on a trip and you can go through the city. You can move your car for 100 days a year, but that's reducing your capacity because there's 365 days a year. So you're allowed to move your car for 100 days a year for a certain amount of time a day. It might be, I think it's restricted to certain hours a day. Yeah.
And the main point, as I understand, it's we have to protect environment.
This is what they
And
say.
also at the same time to protect planet. Can you tell us how can we protect the planet if we move only 100 days a year?
It's nonsense. The whole thing doesn't make sense. Most of these environmental initiatives do not make any sense, as we know. And this is not about saving the planet. It is about global control. And that's really what we need to understand.
What do you mean, global control? How they are planning to control?
Well, the idea, if you dig it right back down into what happened at the Earth Summit in 1992, that's when all these environmental initiatives came into being with Agenda 21 and 2030. Well, it became 2030 in 2015, and in 1992. The globalists, if you like, at the Earth Summit in 1992, there was the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, a guy called Maurice Strong, who was the Secretary General of the United Nations, and a lot of climate lobbyists all got together. Prince Charles was there, by the way, in Rio de Janeiro harbour with the Royal Yacht Britannia. Klaus Schwab was there. They all met to bring the world together on board with an environmental stop people from, or at least unite people in a common cause, which would be climate change. They wanted everyone to agree to save the planet, but already invested in carbon credit bank money. Strong, who was the Secretary General at that time, was an oil billionaire. The Rockefellers and the Rothschilds are billionaires, and they put this all together. They got 178 countries, which is the whole world, of the leaders to come to this conference in Rio de Janeiro in 1992 to sign up to sustainable development. They called it to the stopping of global warming, which it wasn't actually. Whether it was warming at that time or not is questionable. It certainly hasn't warmed to the degree that they said it. So this of they wanted global control. When everybody signed up to Agenda 21, which it was at that time, it wasn't Agenda 2030, they all clinked their champagne glasses on the Royal Yacht Britannia and the yachts in the harbour, and they said, we did it. We got everyone to sign up to sustainable development, which is actually global control. Under the guise of saving the planet. It was a guilt trip, It was getting people to feel guilty about the planet and to sign up to it, where these people were actually billionaires themselves, and they were set to make a lot of money on the climate change scam. And that's what they did with the carbon credit banks and setting up NGOs to promote sustainable development, which is making billions with public-private partnerships at the moment. And that is destroying representational government across the world and destroying people's livelihoods across the world too.
Okay, before we continue, well, in Zagreb they are trying to implement this 15-minute city, and whenever we say something similar to your statement, they said it's just a conspiracy theory. There is no way that this is just a way to live much easily and not to drive if it's not necessary, because you can find everything in a 15-minute walk from your apartment. What you can tell them to see that is not really this agenda as they are telling us right now?
It would be if this was really about environmentalism. It would make sense. What they're creating, also, what they're creating is a lot of confusion and destroying businesses, because if all the traffic is forced out of the city, then it creates more pollution, and that's what's happening in these cities, and it is just destroying people's livelihoods. And surely, if it was there to help people, it wouldn't be destroying the status quo, and that's what it's doing. And because I can see that this is a soft smart city agenda. Now, the smart cities are all part of Agenda 21 2030. They want people not using cars. They want people using electric cars. They want to get rid of diesel and petrol cars, and forcing people to live in urban areas where they can actually just lock them down, if they want to. And it is a way of being able to restrict people's movement. And that's what global control is all about, is restricting movement. There's a government document here in the UK called Absolute Zero. And that document is saying that by 2029, and this is a government commissioned document, by 2029, no planes flying out of UK, no cars, no ships out of UK, the banning of all cars except electric cars, the banning of wood-burning stoves, the banning of all gas appliances, the banning of meat and all lamb and beef production by 2029. All of this, creating almost like a prison island. And this is why we're fighting against it, because the smart city, the 15-minute city agenda is very, very similar to the smart city agenda, where people are not, it's like the Hunger Games. You're not allowed to move out of your zone. You are restricted from moving out of your zone. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's in all the documents that I've been studying for the last 16 years. And I have the Absolute Zero document, which literally states all of this, that there will be no planes and no ships in or out of the UK by 2029. This is why we're coming out big time against this agenda, because they want to really, really take control of UK. Yeah.
Well,
it would. Yeah.
We will show to our audience this document, and they can read by themselves, because they don't have to trust you or me. They need to read by themselves and to see what is in official documents of United Kingdom. If I understood you well, they need some of tools. For example, now all over the Oxford, there is a lot of cameras all around. Also, they want to implement electric cars. And you are implementing digital ID. Now, as we all know, will come central bank digital currency. Are there all tools for implementing this total control, what you are talking about?
Yes, 100%. This is the agenda, is to have everyone. At the moment, they're using a number plate recognition. And when we go into what they want is the digital ID and the CBDCs, the central banking digital system, so that facial recognition will be implemented, and the cameras can actually capture your facial recognition. And unfortunately, we're heading into what's known as a zero trust world, where VPN is a thing of the past, and in order to authenticate, in order to get into your emails, do anything, you're surveilled the whole time, and you're picked up by your facial recognition. And so to get into your emails or anything, you have to authenticate. To go to a supermarket, you have to authenticate. And in that authentication process, and you will only be able to use in their world if they succeed with this, and we mustn't let them succeed. If you can only use your at the moment you use credit cards. They can track and trace everything. When it's a central banking digital system, there's no anonymity with any transaction you make. At the moment you use your credit card, it's just a transaction between the bank. But and when you use cash, it's just between you and the seller. The minute you go into central banking digital system, that transaction is between you and the central banks. And so they can trace every single transaction. So they know all your shopping habits. They know where you go. They know what your health data is. They know everything. They can actually use that in their new social credit system because they're data harvesting you all the time. And also when you go into your emails or whatever, you have to authenticate, and they will be tracking and tracing every human action, everything that you do, all your emails, everything will be tracked and traced.
For that,
that's
it's
the
necessary.
way they want to head it, yeah.
For that, it's necessary to implement cashless society, but they said that they will keep cash.
Who said they will keep cash in Croatia?
I heard from the central bankers, for example, Christine Lagarde says for euro that they will keep cash, and also they said there will be some limits. Okay, but the limits is something else, of course. But they will keep it cash as long as it's necessary. Are they honest, or maybe they have some other plans?
I think that's probably an interim, a short-term thing. I think the end game is to have every country under central banking digital system. To be able to have the control that they need. That's what would have to be implemented. I mean, we're trying desperately to keep cash, but since COVID, most people are using card transactions now, and that's something that we have to avoid. We have to try and keep cash. The more you use it, the less they can take it away.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Also, beside that, now they're telling about agenda, what is calling 2030. That's 17 goals, and these goals are looking, well, very nice. It seems so they are providing us a great future. What do you think about these goals?
Well, it's interesting. The 17 goals became Agenda 2030. The Agenda 2030 is really just a date. It's Agenda 21, but with a goal of 2030. And that was implemented in 2015, where President Obama went to Rome and the Pope endorsed the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And they all sound very, very worthy. I mean, I think the first goal is end poverty. And really, that's a very, very big goal, a worldwide, ending poverty worldwide. And actually, the idea is to make everyone equally poor. This is using universal basic income globally, and bringing in, digital ID and all that sort of thing. So everything runs smoothly. Everybody gets a set amount of money every month. And they're trying to streamline everything so that everything works almost like a finely tuned machine. And nobody really has any choice. Everybody's the same. We're talking global communism here. where everybody receives a set amount of money, and you can only access that if you are complying and being a good citizen, because we're going into a Chinese social credit system with the scrutiny that the surveillance will bring. If you step out of line, if you say something out of line, if you do something out of line, that money stops. You don't have access to normal things. And this is what's happening also with supermarkets. In our country, I don't know if it's happening where you are, but in supermarkets, they're putting everything behind glass doors. There's no open shelves anymore, and they're saying, "Oh, this is to conserve, the temperature, so we're not using too much electricity." But actually, the biometrics that are going into supermarkets, the human tills are going. We're having self-service tills where you are being photographed all the time, that you're using the self-service tills, and the glass doors are there because eventually they will have sensors on them, and these sensors will read your facial recognition. And if you have run out of your carbon credits, because you'll be issued a certain amount of carbon credits per month, if you've used your carbon credits up, or if you are buying something that you shouldn't be buying, if your medical records say you mustn't eat sugar or anything sweet, or if you've had your meat rationing, or if those doors don't open. And this is what is heading. I have a friend in Montana in America, and his name is Aman Jabi, and he developed all of this biometrics for supermarkets and facial recognition, and he's blowing the whistle now. His name is Aman Jabi, and he really he worked in Silicon Valley for 24 years, so I know that this is true. You can find him on YouTube and stuff, and he talks about the biometrics and the surveillance state that they are creating, and they're doing this all in the name of saving the planet, and it is it's a brutal lie. And it's to bring in this Chinese social credit system, global communism. And you guys know what communism is. So you must be more aware of this when you actually see it. Because we in the West, we haven't seen this. People aren't recognizing it.
Yeah. You said right. We know how communism looks like. And that's why we recognize communism during the pandemic. But let's go back. You mentioned carbon credits. What are carbon credits?
Well, they kind of make it up, really. You will be issued, you can only access energy, or you'll be issued with carbon credits, say for your heating. You'll be issued a certain amount of carbon. It's almost like tokens, digital tokens of your carbon usage, if you like. And if you put your heating on too much, or if you haven't got solar panels, or if you keep a pet, all of that goes against your carbon credit rating. So there are certain things that in their crazy world that they're building around us, is that you won't be able to your amount of carbon credits, and when those have gone, you won't be able to heat your house. You won't be able to use your car or anything because you've used up your quota.
But as I know, humans are carbon.
Yes. Well, this is the joke, really. There's nothing wrong with CO2. CO2 is the gas of life. It makes things grow. And what they've managed to do is turn CO2 into a poison in their heads, that it's a pollutant. I think they've conflated it with carbon monoxide, which is what cars used to produce before catalytic converters. And what they're doing is that they're demonizing a perfectly natural gas that actually creates life on Earth. We are carbon. And net zero, which is what they want to get to absolute zero, means zero biological life on Earth. That's what it means. And I kind of think that's what they want, because this is almost like they don't really like the human being, and I don't quite know what, the whole pandemic thing was awful, and that was really thrown at us, and it's genocidal, and now to start up the whole climate change thing again, where they did it at first, before the pandemic, it was all about climate change. We had Greta Thunberg wagging her finger at us saying, you've got to stop driving, you've got to stop flying, you've got to do this, that, and the other, even though she was taking private jets all over the place and pretending she was at sea. She wasn't. And all of this was happening. We were then forced into the pandemic. And whilst we were all locked up, the infrastructure for the technocratic agenda was put in. All the cameras, the LED lampposts, all the infrastructure was put in. And that was the reason for the lockdown as well, as well as, people obviously getting very sick with adverse reactions. So, yeah, we've been through it. And what they're doing is they're creating this technocratic world that they want us to be living in, and it's all part of something else, which was a technocratic agenda, which started in the 1930s, which was brought forward in I think it was in the 70s by Zbigniew Brzezinski as the new economic order, and using carbon credits and energy-based economy as opposed to a price-based economy to be able to control everybody more than, it's a control mechanism. And he was a member of the Trilateral Commission, and he brought all that in the 1970s to be reborn from the 30s, yeah.
Well, as I understood you well, they think there's too many people in the earth, and they have to depopulate the earth. But how they can plan it? How they can depopulate 7 billion people?
This is I've gone through this many times, because I don't know if you ever saw Bill Gates' 2014 TED talk about depopulation. Did you ever see that in Croatia?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
There is a formula, and in this formula he says, if we do very good job with, and he mentioned also vaccines, but everybody is saying that was a mistake. Just Kamala Harris said 1 week ago that they have to depopulate Earth to have a better air. But after that, White House says that she meant it the polluted. That means that was lapsus linguae. But also some people say that was also lapsus linguae from the side of Mr. Gates.
Yeah, well, you see, Mr. Gates has always had his own agenda. I mean, he was, first of all, obviously, he was a geek, and he set up the whole Microsoft thing. And then he saw the value in the connectedness of all of that. I did work on an installation with him many years ago, and he was just a computer geek then, but he was a very odd character. But his father, William Gates, was a eugenicist and worked with a lady called Margaret Sanger for Planned Parenthood, and they were talking about depopulation then. His father, William Gates, and he says he comes from a bloodline of people that actually want to depopulate the earth. A bit like Boris Johnson, our ex-prime minister. His father, Stanley Johnson's the same ideology. And the trouble is that this ideology really was reinforced by one of the Club of Rome reports that made Agenda 21, and this is called Limits to Growth. This is what it was called in 1970s. And a lot of people got on that bandwagon that the world was overpopulated. And we in Europe, we're not even at replacement level at the moment. There's no way. I'm sure, I don't know, because I don't work out the statistics, but as far as I can see, the world is not overpopulated when you actually work out that Europe is not, we're not having children. people are not. Then women are having babies later. They're having fewer babies because they just simply have to work all the time. And there's China. China's population has gone down. The one-child policy did not work. That is in trouble. So I can't see where this overpopulation is coming from, other than computer models, which they always used. They used that in Limits to Growth, the computer models to say, oh, everything is overpopulated. It's not. And they're using it because they can use that to, again, to depopulate and to shrink the population that's left, because it does seem to be an assault on humanity at the moment, and that's an assault on the human condition. That's what I'm seeing.
Let's go back to this statement of Mr. Gates. He says that if they done a really good job with the vaccines, population will go down. What he was thinking, very good job. I know that I had the interview with some people, and they were involved in the program of sterilization in Africa. Also, yes. Some people are now mentioning there is also in these vaccines what they pushed in the last 3 years was something they're calling human promoter, who has a big impact on the placenta, on building a placenta. And that's how they are planning to make women and men also sterilized. Do you know something about this?
In the vaccine, you mean, the RNA?
No, about this statement of Mr. Gates in this TED Talk in 2014.
Yeah, well, he did many experiments in Africa, and he caused many African girls to be sterilized, and he was thrown out of India. The NIH threw him out of India. So I think he's got a very bad history of doing very bad things, particularly in third world countries. But this bringing it in to the vaccine that he developed, basically, the Gates Foundation funded the rollout of the whole vaccine program, and they decided to do this. I mean, it was in 2019 there was a meeting held at the United Nations called the Strategic Framework Partnership Agreement, and it was to accelerate the 17 goals. They weren't moving fast enough. And so that was in June 2019. In November 2019, the first meeting was with Antonio Guterres of the United Nations and Klaus Schwab, and a few other people, I can't remember who, and they put this, we need to accelerate this acceleration process of the 17 goals. And so they put that together, and then literally 4 months later at the Johns Hopkins Institute in New York, they met up again 4 months later in 2019. And it was the same people. It was Klaus Schwab, Antonio Guterres, but this time with Bill Gates and Melinda Gates. And it was what if, it was a tabletop scenario, Event 201 it was called. What if there was a novel coronavirus that turned up escaped from a wet market in Brazil, this exercise? What would happen if that escaped and it went all over Europe? How would we deal with it? And Bill Gates was there saying, yeah, okay, I've got a vaccine. And that is how they did it. And that's when it rolled out, literally, the scenario became a reality. Now, this, from what I can gather, it does. The vaccine has had a catastrophic effect on my daughter's a midwife, and she's seen the results of what's happening with insufficient placenta, insufficient umbilical cord, very late stillbirths, all that kind of thing. It's impacting without a doubt, and other people, people are getting adverse reactions. Yeah.
Yes, and that was event 201, what you mentioned. It was in October of 2019, and they simulated a new pandemic. Also, they implementing some other things that could help, like Internet of Things. and also Internet of Bodies.
Yeah.
Let's say something about Internet of Things. What is Internet of Things?
The Internet of Things is the means of which systems will function in the smart cities. It's between infrastructure, how a smart city will run, how the people will the transport systems, everything interconnected, everything within the smart city interconnected. Now that a stage further, the Internet of Bodies is far more sinister in a way, and I mean it's all sinister because they want everybody moved out of rural areas into the smart cities, removed from nature. I mean, how can you remove human beings from nature? It's not right. And move them into the smart cities and connect them to the Internet of Bodies. This is about human augmentation and what they want. And this is all on I don't know if it still is, on the WEF, the World Economic Forum website. Look up, search for the Internet of Bodies. They tell you what the Internet of Bodies is all about. It's about the human interfacing with the technology. And Elon Musk talks about this with Neuralink. It's about the interface between merging man with machine. Now, this is highly suspect. This is not good at all because it's almost dehumanizing the human being, and I think that's the agenda. Really, is to bring us into the transhumanism and interface the human being with the technology. And they start off by saying, well, you can do this using wearables, ingestibles, sort of, what do you call them, Fitbits and things like that. But it will progress to what they call human augmentation. And even on our government website, there's a Ministry of Defence document that I can access on the internet, and it's called Human Augmentation, and it's a Ministry of Defence document. So this is something that is, they've put it into motion. This is not conspiracy.
And you mentioned also they have to move people from urban area to the cities. Mm-hmm. And I had the interview with Mr. James Patrick, who is filming a documentary about Dutch agriculture. Exactly, they try to take 50% of agricultural land from the farmers in the Netherlands, and that's together 35% of total area. And he thinks that they want to move them from the urban area to the cities, and this is something similar what you are talking about. And the same thing is happening to Netherlands, to Ireland, and they are planning now to do this in France. That means things are happening in the present moment. And now it seems to that they are doing this parallel way to implement all these plans what you are talking about.
Yes. I mean, I'm in Ireland at the moment, and I've been speaking to an Irish farmer today, and the same thing is happening here, where they're giving farmers, they're giving them handouts, subsidies to not grow, not to produce, to rewild their land, to retire early. And this is all a planned way of stopping food production. This is because in one of the goals, I think is goal 2, is end hunger. And what they want to do is control the means of production for food. This is the United Nations. And so in stopping food production by independent farmers, they want a global food agenda, which is actually fake meat, bring in veganism. They're promoting veganism. They want us eating stuff that they've produced. It would be lab grown meat or insect biomass. They call it insect biomass, replacement protein. And get away from traditional farming. And if we do that, people will be undernourished, and there won't be enough food to go around. Because in England, I mean, they're doing the same thing in England, where we're not growing anything. We're not growing anything because the farmers are just being subsidized to what they call set-aside land. They're being given money not to grow, and they're trying to phase out meat and lamb production. So we're an island, where do you get food from if you're stopped from farming? So this is something what really people have to look at, because we will end up having a famine situation in Europe if this continues.
All the time we are talking about them. Who are there? Well,
Who are they?
Formerly, we have our representatives that we elected on elections. But we are talking about somebody else who were never elected anywhere. Who are they?
Oh. Who are they? It's a very good question. I think, you see, the United Nations was formed in 1948, and prior to that, it was the League of Nations in the 1920s, I believe. And prior to that, if you look at the timeline of these globalist organizations, right at the very top, you've always got the Rockefeller Foundation. And the Rockefeller Foundation they've brought in documents like the Lockstep document, which I'm sure you're aware of. It's called the Lockstep document. That was really how they were going to roll out the pandemic. The whole thing was literally taken from the Lockstep document. So you have a bunch of very, very powerful people. You've got the Council for Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Club of Rome, the United Nations. All the same people are on these, the Council of 300. All of these very, very powerful institutions are behind all this.
When you said powerful institution, are there global institutions like United Nations, World Health Organization, European Union, or there is something behind this? What are their tools? What about NGOs?
Well, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, a lot of the control is coming. The NGOs are a means of actually taking over representational government, because I don't think our governments actually understand that they will cease to exist very soon, because the NGOs and the public-private partnerships, private corporations are beginning to own the world. And that is what's happening, is that our national governments are being taken over by public-private partnerships headed up by the United Nations, the European Union. It's all being filtered, and it's all about money. So everything is being financialized. You've got the financialization of nature. You've got something called natural asset corporations being set up, so that when they get rid of the people off the land, they can financialize nature. And it's all done through big business, corporations. Corporations are buying up huge swathes of the UK woodlands and land to offset, well, they say to offset their carbon credits. BA, big corporations are buying up huge swathes of land so that the people will never access that land, and they have to monetize it. So they're using that land to monetize and to ban the humans from being there, because they want to set up glamping for the rich people. So all of nature will be financialized. They're called natural asset corporations or natural asset classes, and this is all. Just look it up. It's all there if you look for it. And how the financialization of nature, the financialization of the human being with the data collection is another thing, because your data is the new currency. When they get rid of the cash, you will only have your data that will be sold, and they will be able to monetize the data that they're selling on the blockchain in something called non-fungible tokens. So everything are pay for success schemes, and data harvesting children in schools, because they are betting on the outcomes of those children, like a futures market. This is all coming if we don't stop it now.
To finish this job, they need compliance from the people, because it's not easy to push so many people to do as they want it. They need compliance. How they are planning to push people to comply?
They'll do it by, well, at the moment it's you're not saving the planet. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, you're not saving the planet. During the pandemic, it was granny will die. Your grandmother will die if you don't take this vaccine. It's all done on the playing on people's consciences and making them feel as though they have to do the right thing. And the thing is that we really have to look at that very carefully. They can't do this without compliance. And I think we need to push back, keep pushing back. We're pushing back in England and Ireland and Scotland and Wales. Wales, are pushing back on many, many things. The sex education in schools has gone crazy here. They're pushing really, really dark agendas. And we are pushing back, and we have to keep pushing back, because the more we push back, the more they realize they can't do this. And the thing is that there's so many people still asleep. We need big numbers. And those numbers will only come when people realize what's happening. And the more they accelerate it, the more crazy it is, and the more we realize what their agenda is. They reveal themselves even more and more at every level. When I think about it, the 15-minute cities woke so many people up. The pandemic woke so many people up. They only need to push it a little bit further, and people will wake up. And in England, because we're not like you in Croatia, we haven't smelt communism. We haven't been under communism ever until now. And people won't wake up till the last minute. Maybe the pushback, we have to see how you guys do it, because hopefully there'll be more pushback in the Eastern European countries. I don't know. But the only thing that I think will happen here is that in our town councils at the moment, the councillors, the people on the town councils, are being given something called carbon literacy training. And this training, once they've undergone that training, it's then pushed out to the local communities to train the local communities in carbon literacy. Now, a friend of mine is doing this, and the content of the course is straight out of China. It's a one-child policy. You mustn't have any pets because that doesn't save the planet. You've got to get rid of your pets. You cannot fly anywhere. You won't be flying anywhere after 2029, and you have to endorse that. And you have to accept the carbon credit system. And if people realise that they won't be able to go on holiday and they have to kill their pets, the British will wake up. I know that. If they can't go to Benidorm and they have to kill Fido, the dog, they will not comply. They'll come out absolutely in their masses, because that will hit them really hard. They'll suddenly say, well, hang on, there's something wrong here. We've always had freedom. We've always had, the English are crazy about pets, but it has to get bad before anybody wakes up. It's got to get much, much worse, unfortunately. So we're looking to really seeing a global pushback on all of this, so that the whole world, almost like a tipping point, is reached very suddenly. We get a tipping point where people realize that this is global communism. They call it communitarianism. It's an ideology that was thought up at Columbia University in 1968 by someone called Amitai Etzioni. And it was really about the needs of the community come before your individual rights. And that is communism by any other name. Yeah.
When you mention pets, in Croatia, 50% of people has a pet. In the northern part of Croatia, 75% has a pet, and mostly they are dogs. I have dog, my daughter, both of my daughters, my mother, everybody have dog. That means when they come after our dogs, maybe we'll wake up. That was a joke, but anyhow, maybe that will help, because you're right. It's necessary for people to wake up, because now people still believe they are saving a planet. Like they believed in the pandemic, they are saving their grandmothers or their neighbors or friends just to take vaccine, even that this vaccine doesn't stop transmission. Anyhow, for the end, can you send a message? What do you think? How long we have time to push back and what we need to do together, of course, in the world, because it seems that is a world agenda, not a national agenda?
I think really work as this was implemented from a global level down to a local level. They used NGOs to bring this sustainable development into local councils, local communities, and they tried to make it look like a grassroots thing. I think we have to unpick it at a local level. In your own community, start developing your parallel systems. Start developing your own way of growing your food, your own way of living, your own homeschooling, so the children don't get indoctrinated, and push back to make sure that you have the food and perhaps even a local currency that you can use when things, because I don't know whether they'll try and use a massive economic crash to bring in the CBDCs and say, right, well, all the money's gone. If you sign up to the CBDC, your money will appear miraculously on a screen. We have to really form our own independent communities to fight back. And I think we need to all come together and understand that this is a way of destroying everything that we hold dear, and understand that we don't have much time. Who knows? I mean, I think they are running scared at the moment. They tried to implement this during the lockdown. They tried the cashless society where everybody had to use cards because it was spreading the pandemic if you use money. It didn't work. And there's a lot of things that haven't worked. Prior to before the 17 sustainable goals, they had 8 millennium goals to be executed by 2000. That didn't work. The Millennium Goals didn't work. The whole pushing of the climate change agenda with Greta Thunberg didn't work. So then they had to accelerate it with the pandemic. And even that hasn't worked. They didn't get the vaccine passports because people came out on the streets en masse. In London alone, I was at a march where there were over 1 million people, and they couldn't implement the vaccine passports. So they're trying all the time. And the pushback is what stops it. And we have to just keep working on that and have hope that we can actually have some effect on what's going on.
Thank you, Sandy. This show is exactly for this purpose, to wake people up, to take a look what they are planning, to listen to people like you, because these people are coming from all over the world. And if this is happening in the United Kingdom, there is no reason it will not happen in Croatia. Thank you. It was a pleasure, and I wish you all the best in your fight for freedom.
Thank you. And if you want to get a hold of me, my Twitter handle is Sandy Adams, Sandi Adams, Adams. At Sandy Adams 2030. And I put everything on. At the moment, I'm in Ireland. Our event was pulled. We had 2 venues, and we've freedom of speech in Ireland. It's been very bad because they've stopped us from having our event, but we carried on and we've done it online. So we're getting all this stuff thrown at us. We are right-wing conspiracy theorists. We're this, we're that, we're the other. All we're trying to do is spread the truth, and it's all inverted. Misinformation is being sold as the truth, and vice versa. We're trying to give the truth, and we're being told that we are spreading misinformation. So just keep up the fight. Never, 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 ever give up. We have to keep going.
We will, for sure. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Andre. It's been really good to speak to you. Thank you. And love to Croatia.
Yes. Me too. Okay. Evo, dragi narode, čuli ste gospođu Adams. Sve poveznice ću naravno staviti kao i uvijek ispod videa, pa pogledajte sami, pročitajte. 15-minutni gradovi se implementiraju u Zagrebu. Na stranicama grada Zagreba možete vidjeti kako to izgleda i isto tako vidjeti da je to potpuno bezazleno. Naravno, osim ako počnete razmišljati o tome zašto to implementiraju, tko ih je izabrao da tako nešto implementiraju, da li su to imali u programu u svom političkom. Da li netko traži da živimo 15-minutnim gradovima samo hodajući od kuće, ne vozeći uopće automobil ili vozeći 100 dana u godini, kao što recimo u Velikoj Britaniji, jer ako netko govori da to hoće implementirati, a istovremeno se ista stvar događa u nekoliko stotina gradova po svijetu, onda mi trebamo usporediti što se tamo događa, što su tamo napisali, a ovdje nisu i da li će to doći ovdje. Da li u zemlji u kojoj imamo, koliko znamo od zadnjeg popisa stanovništva, 500.000 ljudi manje, dakle 3,8 skoro miliona, imamo u zemlji koja je veličine Nizozemske gdje je 15 milijuna ljudi. Zar je uistinu nužno da mi samo živimo u okruženju od 15 minuta? Da li je za tako malo broj populacije u ovako velikoj zemlji za malu populaciju je potrebno tako živjeti? To su pitanja koja bi ja volio da čujem odgovor od naših vlastodržaca. Istovremeno da mi odgovore na pitanja kako to da isti NGO-vi, dakle nevladine organizacije, financiraju njihove aktivnosti kao i aktivnosti istih ljudi u Velikoj Britaniji, u Francuskoj, u Irskoj, koji provode istu agendu. S tim da tamo, kao što vidite, ne skrivaju da žele da ljudi da prestaju putovati, da imaju samo po jedno dijete, zato što smo mi ugljik, a ugljik zagađuje okoliš, stoga nas je potrebno biti što manje, dok oni istovremeno tvrde da se to u Hrvatskoj dogoditi neće. Ja bi im ipak postavio pitanje, je li to sve slučajnost ili nam ne otkrivaju mnoge stvari koje ovog trenutka saznajemo od drugih, kao što vidite, u Velikoj Britaniji. To je jedna vrlo ozbiljna stvar. Ja bih volio da je ovo sve teorija zavjere, kao što sam spomenuo gospođe. Volio bih da su njihove namjere uistinu poštene, da žele dobro za nas. Međutim, nemojmo zaboraviti da je prije nekoliko dana proglašen klimatski lockdown u Izraelu i da su na nekim mjestima zabranjene aktivnosti na otvorenom. Kao da se ljude sačuva od velikih vrućina. Istovremeno, Justin Trudeau, kanadski premijer, je glasno i jasno rekao iskustva koja smo primijenili u pandemiji, kao što su lockdown, trebamo primijeniti i u klimatskim promjenama. Također, naš premijer jasno i glasno kaže da su klimatske promjene prvi fokus. Da li će se i on boriti protiv klimatskih promjena na način kao što se to bore sad u Velikoj Britaniji ili Irskoj ili u Nizozemskoj, tako da eliminiraju veliki broj krava koji zagađuju okoliš tako što proizvode dušik. To su pitanja koje moramo postaviti i da nam da konkretne odgovore. A ako mu ne vjerujemo, a kao što znamo da u protekle 3 godine mnoge stvari koje su nam rekli, čak bi rekao gotovo sve, nije bilo istinito, pokazalo se da je bila laž i propaganda, onda nemamo razloga ni vjerovati da su njihove uistinu namjere da nas sačuvaju ovaj planet od klimatskih promjena ili su namjere nešto drugo, a to je upravo ovo o čemu sam razgovarao s gospođom Adams danas, a to je depopulacija stanovništva, smanjenje broja stanovnika na zemlji jer nas je navodno previše i također organizacija društva po uzoru, a svi hvale Kinu, po uzoru na Kinu gdje postoje social credit system, dakle sistem socijalnog ocjenjivanja u kome će vas, ako ste dobri, nagraditi i dat će vam više karbonskog kredita, a ako niste, kaznit će vas. Mene će vrlo vjerojatno odmah zabraniti. Ali u redu, do tada ćemo se boriti. Hvala lijepo na vašoj pažnji. Nadam se da ste zadovoljni sa današnjom emisijom. Podržite nas i dalje, pratite nas. Mi ćemo otvarati ove teme. Kao što znate, te teme se ne otvaraju u mainstream medijima. Te teme se tamo proglašavaju teorijama zavjere, a dosad smo više puta svjedočili da je razlika između teorije zavjere i stvarnosti svega nekoliko mjeseci. Hvala vam lijepo i vidimo se uskoro u sljedećoj epizodi Slobodni.
Nitko vas neće natjerati da se poklonite zvijeri, učinit ćete to svoje voljno, odbacujući vjeru. Bićete laka meta za zvijeri, jer se niste podredili vjeri. Ako se ne podredite vjeri, podredit ćete se zvijeri. Toliko ćete se suobličiti sa ovim svijetom, da nećete ni prepoznati da ste u zabludi. Biće to najveća demonska prevara ikada. i pravedno zaslužena osuda nad nepokajanim grešnicima.
Gdje su svi oni koji su nas liječili, zakletvom iz mrtvih dizali, svojom šutnjom ste nas izdali. Gdje su svi oni koji su nas liječili, zakletvom iz mrtvih dizali, zar su nas